What's going on, everybody? It's that boy Sanji and welcome to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about One Piece chapter 1064, which just came out last night. This was a crazy chapter. First, let's jump right into it with the cover page. We see Kuzan, yes, Aokiji, for the first time in God knows how long. It has been forever since we've seen Aokiji, and not only do we see him, but we also see Pudding captured with Van Augur as well. And this is huge, because if people don't remember, Pudding is one of the only other people in the One Piece verse that we know that can possibly read poneglyphs. So it makes perfect sense that Blackbeard would plan to go to Whole Cake once Big Mom is gone and kidnap Pudding for his own use. So this just perfect Blackbeard, exactly as we expect him to be right before we get into the main part of the chapter, which starts off right away with Law just going at it. And the first main thing that stuck out to me right away was finally, after years, we finally see Law's crew being useful and doing something for once. The Heart Pirates have kind of been like the joke of the One Piece community for a while because Law's right-hand man was Beppo, supposedly, and everyone was just joking that how the hell are these people going to survive in the new world with the crazy pirates? At least Kid has Killer, who's showed himself to be very strong on Wano. It was kind of cool to finally see them actually be useful for once, and they did some pretty non-trivial things, like one of their members blocking a shot from Van Augur, which I could imagine a lot of people couldn't do, swimming underwater trying to blow up Blackbeard's ship, which was pretty cool. We also see Pudding, who's in a little jail cell with some of the Blackbeard pirates, and mentioning if Big Mom is not dead, then she's definitely going to make Blackbeard pay for this. And I think that on its own, I think that may be the first real confirmation, or not confirmation, but it's sort of like a pseudo confirmation. It's not actually saying that Big Mom is still alive, but just based on that interaction alone, it's probable that she's still alive. And I guess we still don't know about Kaido. There were some theories that Big Mom would have used Kaido's soul power to stay alive in the magma and the volcano, and that Kaido will actually die. I honestly think this is more likely. I feel like if both of them come back, it would be pretty weird, and I think the way that Wano went, it would be pretty fitting for him to just die off there. But that'll be interesting to see. But anyway, now I want to talk about the end of the Blackbeard fight. We see him use Black Vortex or Kurozu or whatever he calls it at the end of the fight, and then immediately cuts to Sakazuki and the world government in the Navy. So I'm really curious what's going to happen when Teach finally uses his Yami Yami no Mi, and we see what the hell Law is going to do, because does Law have any special tricks to deal with something like that, or is he just screwed? Personally, I think he's probably just screwed. But anyway, we then cut to one full page of Akainu, and he's saying, damn, why do I keep having to wait? It's so frustrating being Fleet Admiral. And I think that's pretty funny, thinking about it. A lot of these pirates, while they're clashing, the world government can't just run in. They really have to wait for the pirates to make the first move. And from an antagonist point of view, it is kind of exciting to see how willing he is to just jump in, cause some mayhem, and take some pirates captive. So I think when he finally gets his chance to show out and to really do some damage, Akainu is definitely going to deliver. Moving on, we're finally back at Egghead, and we see the Straw Hats are all old looking, probably from Bonnie's fruit. They use this to stop the police looking Kuma from attacking them still, and one thing I thought was crazy funny is, why the hell does Jinbei look like that? All the Straw Hats look like pretty realistic older versions of themselves, but Jinbei, I was not expecting that. It looks completely different. It almost reminds me of Kawamatsu. Now, this is where it gets really interesting. We see Jinbei go on a little rant about Kuma and what he knows. And basically, if you're not familiar, the story is that Kuma was the king of a certain kingdom and apparently did something very tyrannical, supposedly, and his own people kicked him out, and he was caught by the Navy, and because it was discovered that he had ties to the revolutionaries, he was forced to make a decision. He would be able to roam the seas again as a warlord if he gave up his body in exchange for an experiment with Dr. Vegapunk, which we now know that they used his body and cloned him to make the pacifistas. Taking all this into account, Bonnie says that there's no way that he would have done anything for the entire world to label him a tyrant. It just didn't make sense. Just knowing what the world government has done throughout the story is probably most likely that they framed Kuma because they knew he was tied to the revolutionaries, and they wanted to not only get access to his body, which is kind of interesting, but also to get him out of power in his kingdom and under government control. So I definitely expect to learn a bit more about Kuma's real history and what actually happened, and I think it's going to have some pretty important ties to the story to learn about the government's doings and what they've been working on with regards to their technology. Especially after learning about King and him being a special race, which now looks like was used to make some of the Seraphims. I'm sure they've used Kuma for something as well. And is Kuma also a Lunarian, or is he just another rare race? But regardless, it's probably got some ties to the ancient kingdom, some ties to the tribes of the past, so that'll be really interesting to see Oda elaborate on that more. Now, this chapter had bombshell after bombshell, but perhaps the biggest one came at the end. We see a bit more of Egghead, and it's crazy. They've got floating clouds just like Sky Island. They say the research stratum, or the area of Egghead where all the research is performed, is up in those clouds, and the fabrication where things are made and devices and all that stuff is created is down below, where Luffy currently is. And so the last few panels of the chapter, we see Vegapunk on the phone with somebody, and it turns out to be Dragon. Honestly, anytime Dragon's name comes up in the story, everyone goes crazy, myself included. It's exciting, he's mysterious, he's at the same level of mysteriousness as Shanks to me. But for some reason, I'm not surprised that someone as powerful and well connected as Dragon would have ties to someone like Vegapunk, but it also makes you question Vegapunk himself. In the panels, we do see what looks to be 01, the number, which would indicate that this is like the first Vegapunk, and that his consciousness was split amongst like many different robots. But is this really the real Vegapunk, or the robot closest to him? That would be really interesting to find out. But something I'd like to point out is, if Vegapunk has ties to Dragon, and he has ties to the world government, what side is he on? And is he just a genius that serves the interests of science and whatever he's interested in, and he doesn't really care who comes and uses his technology? I don't think it's going to be that simple. I think Vegapunk is going to have some sort of interesting story and some motives for sure. Otherwise, I think it'd be sort of a waste, but we'll have to see. Lastly, Vegapunk also mentions that one of the curses of being a genius is that you can see the future, and he sees himself dying. So who's gonna kill him? Is he gonna die of a disease? Is somebody gonna kill him? What's gonna happen? There's just so many questions to be asked. Why the hell is he talking to Dragon? And also, what can Dragon use from Vegapunk? Like, what sort of technologies will we see the revolutionaries implement? So far, we haven't seen anything. They all sort of just wear green hoods. Overall, this chapter just had so many bombs dropped. It was one of those chapters where you're just getting information after information, and it's not enough to spoil the whole thing, but just enough to keep you excited, which Oda is really skillful at, and he's done so many times in the past, and I expect him to continue to ramp it up even more in the next year or two. We are getting closer to the end of the story, and things are going to get really, really interesting. But anyway, that's all I wanted to say about the chapter this week. If it's your first time seeing my channel, I'm looking to make chapter reviews, general content about One Piece, whether it's comedy, theories, etc., and just make this a place where people can talk, theorize, have serious conversations, and also goof around and have fun and all enjoy the story of One Piece together. So if you're interested in more content, make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Deuces.